Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I would like to welcome you to the 7th lecture in this series of lectures on research methods. Before we go into the discussion of qualitative methods, we need to spend a little bit more time, one more time, to find out the difference between quantitative and qualitative research methods. In quantitative research methods, we focus on collecting objective set of data. We employ different types of research methods, for example, surveys, experiments, simulations. And once again, we want objective data. For example, if we ask someone for gender, it will yield an objective answer. Similarly, in qualitative research methods, we focus on collecting subjective information. We might not have a lot of numbers to crunch in this type of research method. And data is mostly in the form of spoken or written words, images, impressions, or even gestures. Some of the examples of research methods that belong to qualitative research include interviews, case studies, content analysis, observations, natural experiment, photography, ethnography, histography, sociometry. For example, if we ask a question, what role information communication technologies are playing in the socio-economic development of Pakistan to different people, we might get different answers. So we ask that question to different people with a varying degree of expertise and backgrounds. These are experts, these are end users, regulators, stakeholders, or even people who are having independent opinion. And we do an important thing. We carefully record everything. This recording could be in the form of audio or video. But we have to make sure that we record everything in natural sequence. What socio-economic benefits is the progress in ICT sector yielding?
Variety of socio-economic benefits of ICT utilization in Pakistan are appearing. I'll give you a prime example of the ready availability at fairly reasonable cost of the mobile phones. Mobile phone is transforming the way people interact with each other. Readily available mobile phones in schools to headmasters, headmistresses, teachers, and students are making it possible for the young learners to interact with their teachers, and that to me is a quantum leap in terms of the educational change that one sees in Pakistan.
What socio-economic benefits is the progress in ICT sector yielding?
Interestingly, in Pakistan, ICT, meaning information and communication technologies, is the component relating to telecommunication has grown tremendously over the last 18 months after the market was deregulated. And with the proliferation of mobile phones throughout Pakistan, there are almost 45 million of them. And the fact that the cost of calling has gone down to almost less than what used to be the cost of a local call. You can call New York at the same charge as you are calling across the room. The cheap communications and proliferating this throughout the rural areas has had tremendous benefits, not only in making life easier for people, stimulating the economy in a sense, stimulating businesses, saving time in traveling, and on a social aspect, it is bringing societies and families together like never before. On the IT side, the results are a bit more diffuse. One of the reasons is that we've gone through the cycle of hype when the bubble burst and everybody thought that IT was probably the savior of mankind. I think it's settling into something more sensible now. You go to supermarkets, you go to small shops in the cities, and you see people are using inventory management, you're using barcodes, you're using labor-saving devices and things which are making the economy a bit more documented than it was before. People are more aware of using ICT or using computers especially since these proliferate in the houses. It has had tremendous impact on education, for instance. Children are far more aware than beyond what they're taught in the classrooms. So a bit of the dichotomy in or the lack of good curricula is in part made up by what children learn on their own. They have the ability to feel a bit more independent, ability to create, ability to learn things which the teachers perhaps are not often suited to be able to teach them appropriately. So it has had a very, very broad and a wide-ranging impact. Older generations have to learn how to use the computers in order to be able to communicate with the younger generation. The younger generation is so prolific in its use that now I think it's important that they are channelized. But like everything else in life, there are tides in the affairs of man. In this particular case, I believe small policy changes can bring about tremendous benefits of ICT at the grassroots. Telecommunications has transcended the ability or the ability of the monopoly to be able to selectively give communications to any place they wanted. Now, because of wireless communications, people are not location bound. So that's the first major impact. People feel a bit more empowered. They can communicate better. They have the ability to use these as devices for social cohesion, for getting work done, cutting down traveling times, being a bit more aware of what's happening, finding out, for instance, earlier times when people used to tout ICT for finding farm to market times being shortened, ability of the farmers to get to know what's happening as far as rates are concerned in different parts of the country. This now becomes less of a structured thing and more that the people feel empowered to be able to do these things. That's the first thing. The second area is the ability of the government to create certain useful projects rather than pie in the sky. I mentioned, for example, especially with the rural areas, land or land records in Pakistan is one of the most difficult things to handle. This is a part of the whole feudal culture, a part of almost a 400-year-old record keeping system. It forms 85% of all court cases, all the backlog. Litigation in Pakistan is due to lands. Now, over the last few years, few companies have evolved software, and Rahim Yar Khan, parts of Lahore, Gujarat, and all these cities, these provinces and these districts are slowly being converted to electronic records. And the minute these things are in place, it will take a few years, there's obvious resistance, but these are grassroots impact. Land records, example, will enable farmers to use land as collateral. You could take title insurance on lands and be able to transfer lands from one to the other. I would see in the next 4 or 5 years a huge reduction in cases relating to property. Then the whole issue of politics. You find that people who are educated with IT, with computer knowledge, with the ability to use this as a tool, stand a better chance of getting jobs. Interestingly, earlier people thought you used to study IT and you had to become a computer engineer. Not so. Now you can be a doctor and be very, very proficient in IT. I meet young people. The other day I met a young singer, a very popular singer in Pakistan. He's running a very, very high-tech non-linear editing studios. He is using technology to its ultimate. Now he's an artist. I didn't expect him to talk of bits and bytes and all the complex issues that relate to very high-speed processing, but he knew that because he had studied it. The younger generation, and if you're aware, 80% of Pakistan is less than 25 years of age or 23 years of age. Now this is a huge challenge and a tremendous opportunity. If we are able to continue down this path, the government, not due to direct intervention beyond the fact that they should intervene in the rural areas, they should make broadband come right down to the grassroots, have the ability of people to use this broadband internet, as it is known as, they don't have to go and search on Google on websites. There's a lot of intercommunication which will take place between communities, between cities, and new objectives of the government, and what the government, especially in the telecom domain, is bringing about are things like the universal service funds in telecommunication, actually funding telecenters in the rural areas. These will be areas, places where people can come to learn, to get information, to use the internet, and a whole variety of things. On the administrative side, lots of people, it's a very interesting thing. It's not as if you can do it by fiat, by the president saying thou shalt do this. It's probably not happening like this. The younger CSP officers or DMG officers or people who are more aware know this and are selectively applying it. And you see these pockets of excellence springing all over the place. And I think when the older generation retires and goes away and this younger generation finds its feet, you would have a huge base of people who are IT literate, who are able to use these despite the fact that they may be traders or people studying architecture or computer science or filmmaking. Their abilities to use this, whether they are in the rural areas or in the urban centers, this disequality with time will disappear. But this is the only area where you need policy interventions.
What socio-economic benefits is the progress in ICT sector yielding?
In order to answer that question, first we have to understand what are the changes that have happened on the ICT landscape in Pakistan over the last few years. Pakistan had a reasonably all right fiber optics terrestrial infrastructure as far as communications are concerned, but the overall outreach of the telephony system was very minuscule. Cellular operators were few and the service was very expensive. 2 or 3 major decisions taken by the current government have impacted the ICT usage and therefore the socio-economic scenario in Pakistan. The first one was the introduction of a calling party pays regime in cellular communication. That substantially lowered the cost of a telephone call and suddenly people became empowered. More cellular companies came to Pakistan and the biggest benefit was to the consumer. Because of the competition, we've got a huge cellular base which has far outstripped the fixed line base in telephony. Number 2, the government also put in place PakSat-1, which is Pakistan's first telecommunications satellite. It is situated at 38 degrees east, almost on top of Nairobi, and it has a huge footprint from northern Africa all the way over to Bangladesh and then northwards, covering most of Central Asia. With that communication satellite in place, it became possible to start using ICTs for education and for the dissemination of information. Now, these 2 parallel efforts, one was satellite communication and the other one was the explosion in cellular communication or telephony, combined with the use of the internet. And where does the internet come in? The fact that most of Pakistan's exchanges were already on fiber, almost 99.9% of all exchanges right now sit on a broadband fiber optic network, combined with the fact that we introduced new international connectivity through CMEV3 and then further fiber optic lines, meant that Pakistan was suddenly connected to the outside world. The overall cost of communication in fact came down quite dramatically. At the turn of the millennium, the cost for an E1 line was close to $86,000, which means a 2 megabit line cost this phenomenal amount in Pakistan. Right now, as we speak, it is probably less than $2,300. So you can see how the price or the cost of communication has plummeted. If you put all of these together, the ICT empowerment, what happens is that you've got a socio-economic benefit that is accruing to the population at large. Everybody has a cell phone in their pocket, from the street vendor to the pushcart vendor. In fact, I can give you specifically from a socio-economic perspective a very interesting example. This is from a little town outside of Lahore in Sheikhupura. I have actually seen this in place. A pushcart vendor, a person who actually services several shops by carting their goods from one place to the other on a human-powered pushcart, he has a cell phone in his pocket. Simply by using the feature of a distinctive ringtone, he has programmed his regular customers each having a different ringtone. All the customer or the shopkeeper needs to do is give this guy a ring. The person does not answer the phone. He simply recognizes the ring and says, recognizes that his services are needed in shop A, B, or C. So he just walks over and carts the goods and makes his money. Now, and it costs nobody even a penny, and it is based on ICT, a very innovative use. Let's cross over to slightly more serious areas. Along with cellular telephony, we've also introduced the wireless local loop, which meant areas that were previously deprived of fixed line communications have now come into the communications picture. Over the same WLL, internet connectivity is possible, very seamless, very affordable, very convenient, which means suddenly the entire country is connected to the internet and therefore to each other as well. And the fountains of knowledge, which is really the humankind's knowledge is stored on the internet right now, is now available to people at their fingertips. In terms of education, the major impact has been the delivery of very high quality, affordable education to every nook and cranny of the country. What happens to kids when they study in their own hometowns? In other words, education at their doorsteps. It means they do not migrate to the big cities to get education. The migration had a downside, which meant that if a student came to a big city, 90% would stay on, or they would move on, maybe to even a larger town or leave the country in search of better job opportunities, etc. But the hinterland from which these students originated would never benefit from this education. By using distance education and using ICTs to deliver it, what we're doing is that we've got world-class education being delivered to every corner of the country. And then after graduation, if a student decides that they want to set up shop, I hope and we assume that this will happen, many of them will do so in their own hometowns, which means there is an economic benefit that will accrue from this education right where the student is located. This is only possible through ICT. It is not possible through the conventional mechanism of traditional education, unless we are able economically and financially to establish universities in every little town and district of the country. And that still means we have not tackled the problem of the faculty shortage. So ICTs, I believe, are a serious contributor to the socio-economic well-being of the country.
What socio-economic benefits is the progress in ICT sector yielding?
So in my view, there are two aspects to the questions. One, impact on the social system of the country, and then on the economic system. In the social system, the availability of telecommunication, for example, is improving the national productivity in terms of the involvement of different segments of the society, especially the working classes like plumbers, like electricians, like mason, like carpenters, and all those categories which never had access to telecommunication. Today they have very good access to telecommunication by way of the availability of the mobile phone services at much reduced and affordable prices. Number two, in terms of access to the information, people are having now more access to information. They get information more quickly from the websites, which is available as part of the e-governance systems. So the process is taking time, and it is natural that to bring a big social change in the system, it always takes time, but I think the change has already started. Empowerment to the citizens, empowerment to the poor, empowerment at least, especially the gender, the discrimination in the gender is perhaps, we are bridging the gulf, and now the women particularly are now, they are having more access in the social system. They are being more empowered, they have connected, they are feeling connectedness, and that way it is having a good social impact on the society. And this is resulting into creation of a lot of new job opportunities. So employment, especially in the case of the educated manpower of the country, is improving. On the economic front, once the economic activity is increasing, the productivity of the labor class, the productivity of the workers, the efficiency of the performers, both in the corporate sector, in the government, and in private sector. So it is bringing about a total change in the structure, though it is a long time taking process. The reach of the service is still limited, but we think that the beginning has already started, and the impacts on the society, both in terms of social system and the economic systems, are positive.
What socio-economic benefits is the progress in ICT sector yielding?
The socioeconomic benefits are on a number of areas. First, let me talk about the social benefits. First of all, just like any other country in the world, the greater use of the internet has empowered people with knowledge. Their participation in blogs, in various discussion groups has increased their comprehension of the areas of interest. But also I can tell you, for example, in Pakistan, the Ministry of IT has launched e-govern program. One of those constituent projects is e-justice, where different defendants or accused or stakeholders in the legal system can see the status of their cases and the schedules of hearings on the internet, on the website. So this brings convenience to the people. Similarly, the President and the Prime Minister have published their email addresses, and people can write to them directly. Other than this aspect of empowerment, of the masses, so as to speak, women, I think the empowerment of women through IT is significant. In the IT industry in Pakistan, for example, it employs over or around 30% women in its workforce. So that is quite a significant number, and results in women's empowerment. So I think socially, I would like to focus on those two areas. Economically, of course, the benefits are tremendous. IT in Pakistan is becoming the engine of growth of the national economy. We have seen exports grow at over 50% a year over the last 3 years, which is a growth of over 300%. Domestically, we've seen a growth of over 30% a year. Employment creation, direct employment creation in the economy today, as of end of the calendar year 2006, is almost 100,000 IT professionals. And indirect employment, particularly for the IT professionals employed by the IT industry itself, which is about 35,000, indirect employment is at least another 35,000. So economically, there are multiple benefits also in the area of foreign exchange earnings, where formally declared earnings are small, roughly about $75 million, but a lot of IT revenue comes in through personal remittances, and that figure we suspect is at least $300 million.
So you saw that different people had different type of answers, and we did not stop them. We let them say whatever they wanted to. Okay, now once we have that data, what do we do with that data? We have to follow the following steps. We need to organize and manage that data. We have to read and memo that data. Sometimes we need to transcribe that data. We need to write down whatever was said. And then we need to classify and define categories and patterns within that data. We look for unifying themes. We count the number of times a word is repeated. We interpret that data. We draw logical maps or diagrams. Look for new ideas. We represent or visualize that data in different forms. So today, we discussed difference between quantitative and qualitative research method. We talked about major types of qualitative study, and we had a demonstration of interview type research method, and we talked about what do we do after we have collected that data. This concludes our today's lecture. We'll see you next week. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.